They both look pretty. Alright, so it definitely doesn't get the sharpest audio when we do it like this. I might be able to like turn it up later but
Mix the audio.
Yeah.
I've been working on that too.
A little bit, just because like I've been using these microphones, and these microphones they're so they're actually like too sensitive. It's really weird. Like if they're lapel mics, right? But if you actually put them on your lapel, then they're very distorted because they're way too sensitive. So they're kind of more like belly button mics. And if you put them at belly button level, they work pretty good. But
would they work good like sat on the table?
Yeah, they would. I don't know what I think the battery might be.
Oh, I see.
They're very cheap though. They're like $20, and for like a Bluetooth microphone set, it's not too bad. Even if they do have like really shitty audio, but yeah. So yeah, this one's for with my buddy Tim, Tim is really cool. He's also working on a philosophy project. So raised in a cult, also working on a philosophy project.
Oh wow!
And massive overlap in the types of ways we are approaching our problems and solutions where we are arriving at. And so we like, he's a really cool guy. I want to say like my main frustration with him is that like I feel like he's not trying to make his ideas like presentable and graspable to normal people in the way that I am. And so like his ideas like feel very like esoteric, but he's a great thinker. I really like what he's thinking.
What's his goal? If not for other people to take his ideas.
That's a great question. So I think it's like well, okay, I'm not sure. I know that he said that he's trying to quote like not be a philosopher but be an artist because philosophers don't really make a difference in the way that artists do or something like that. I'm not really sure what his goal is, but I know that like I think he's trying to solve. So I think like maybe the main difference in the way that we are approaching and working on things is that I'm trying to like sort of solve this problem from like a personal power dynamic. So I guess like, and he's trying to solve like social issues rather than personal power. So like, and I guess that's like the main sort of like difference in the way that like types of things that we were working on, but we were arriving at like very similar conclusions. I don't know. It was a good conversation. I feel like it got mostly like, it kind of got better like an hour into it. If you watch the video, like the first hour was okay, but it kind of started to make more sense after about like, well, I don't know. Also the recording is like so bad. I'm really annoyed with it. Like, it's just like too quiet. Like you have to turn your volume all the way up, and even then it's like barely audible. And I don't know.
Use the lapels with it?
No, I did it like this, and this is also going to suck. But I don't really know how to fix it. Because like the only way to get both of us in frame is to have it far enough back that you can. So but I think it helps a lot. Like today it's really quiet, and there's no like background noise. It helps a lot. Yeah. I don't know. It's not gonna be as nice.
Yeah.
As like
test it out how it sounds. You're also not.
Sure. We could also like maybe we could just record with the laptop. I didn't think that. Maybe we could do that.
And overlay the audio.
Yeah. Hold on. So I'm using QuickTime Player to record things because it has like a video audio recording. Yeah, maybe this is the solution to overlay the audio. I'm gonna have to like switch the charging cables back and forth. But okay, anyways. How have you been?
Good. Yeah. I mean, I'm working my own project. Reading a lot because I don't have to. There's a lot of downtime at work. So just reading, writing, just finding more and more books to read.
Okay.
Which So I've hit a kind of bottleneck in the project where I want to do kind of a historical overview on general universal principles, but I've never really researched them before. So I'm starting from square one, and I don't have any experts to ask for advice. I'm just ChatGPTing, Amazon book reviewing. Like, does this work for me? Yeah.
What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to learn?
Just do an overview through human history and evolution, how humans have used universals. Like early on in divination, perhaps with hunter-gatherers, in animism when everything was alive, and there wasn't a sense of history, to early gods, ancestor worship, where there was some idea of like some power, to more formal gods and kingships, to axial age religions, Christianity, where ideas of this universal principle of a god, or moving into science, like gravity is a universal principle, and how it went from being like very mystical, a way to understand your values and norms, and how reality worked, to just how reality worked with modernity and science, and just tracing that in a competent way.
Okay. I love it. Okay, so this reminds me of something something that I've been thinking and working on is that like there are dialectics, right? But one of my fundamental suppositions is that there's a hierarchy. Like some of them are more fundamental than others.
Agreed.
And so do you have like any initial thoughts about like what are the most fundamental like perspectives or what was it? I don't know what the word you're using, but like most fundamental principles.
That's what I'm trying to look at with this project. In the two broader categories, order and chaos. I wasn't even expecting how often it came up in old myths. Like all these books frame like these rituals are trying to maintain some sense of order in the face of reality. Everyday imminent reality being full of chaos. And so there's that, taking that to like complexity theory, chaos theory, which also uses this language in this relatively new science, and how it really parallels even the ancient myths, how they talk about it. That this kind of dialectic of order and chaos seems to occur from physics, biology, psychology, sociology, spirituality.
I think, it's something I've been leaning towards also recently is that I think that the order and chaos thing might be one of the most fundamental, if not the most fundamental dialectic.
Even the way like cosmos is described, like there was this primordial chaos of undifferentiated unity, out of which the first forms of order, the first god emerged, began differentiating the world, where there was like a dragon of chaos defeated by a god who created the universe out of its dismembered body.
What myth is that? Or...
I think it was Sumer Marduk was the god who destroyed Tiamat. It's the only one I remember by name.
What culture does that come
from? Sumer is like early Mesopotamia, current day Iraq.
Okay.
Like it was them, and then like Babylon became a major city-state in the region before like Egypt became more powerful for Greece. It's like early civilizations in the Middle East.
This is fascinating. Okay, so like what prompted you to go down this rabbit hole? And also like or at least like what prompted you to start seeking like ancient perspective?
I just want to be as comprehensive as possible. I guess in a way, it even just comes out of the fact, like, a decade and a half ago, I was like, maybe a run-of-the-mill atheist, materialist, just like modernity. We got rid of all these superstitions, we've moved on. we have this greater scientific sense of the world, we can control the world, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And through my 20s, just came to greater recognition that there's a lot of ancient wisdom. Move that back further.
Yeah.
You might want to tilt it
Oh,
towards where you're sitting too.
is it kind of like that?
No, I mean like, not tilt, like this.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're right.
And yeah, I just want to take those ideas seriously, not just dismiss them as like magical thinking. That, you know, these are in a lot of ways our ancestors. We wouldn't be where we are if they didn't do what they did, and it might sound absurd to us, but there's probably a grain of truth. And also just in reading something, it seems like more than a grain of truth. Like even the idea of the Big Bang is like this uniform thing out of which everything differentiated and an order emerged. Like it's basically the same story.
Yeah. Okay, I'm so excited to talk with you about this because that's crazy. How long have you been thinking this, that the order and chaos dialectic is like one of the most fundamental, and also, I don't know, like what, oh sure, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Well, I've been interested in these type of universals, I think, my whole life. I started trying to post-atheism, reconnect with them in my early 20s. Seeing order and chaos, like those words, like I think those words could mean a lot of things to different people, but in a broad sense, I think pretty early on in my 20s. But honestly, it was like coming across Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, these kind of
one of the
questions,
first ones.
this way of approaching it with the ancient perspective is very Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. And he just pulls a lot from this Jungian Eric Neumann. Like, in a lot of sense, Eric Neumann just says the same thing better. Because he's working from like Sumerian Egyptian myths, and then connects that with like Jungian psychology. But then I like even just random things. Like I think even Peterson talks about like the left and the right. Like the right sides more towards order, while the left wanting more freedom is like sides towards more towards chaos. Different morality frameworks. Like I like Jonathan Haidt. He talks about authority versus liberty. He sees those as like that's basically very similar. In Big Five theory, conscientiousness, like being conscientious is heading towards order, wanting more organized, versus low conscientiousness, more improvisation, more openness to different things. Like this kind of open, closed, order, chaos. Like on all these different theories, I think often touch on these type of broad things, and they seem most fundamental to like how we look at the world. Like competition, cooperation, or downstream of is there first order or is there chaos, or other things too.
Okay, I don't know where to start with this. No, yeah, okay, so when you were first talking about this, I was definitely thinking like this reminds me of Jordan Peterson, and because it always bothers me when people shit on Jordan Peterson because he's got so much positive stuff, even though he's got like a lot of bullshit, like admittedly, and obviously
5-6 years he's kind of
yeah, but he's also
become what he used to warn against in a lot of respects.
I don't know. I haven't really kept up with him because I've lost interest. He goes down a lot of weird rabbit holes. He's got a lot of interest I'm not really that interested in, but definitely like he has a powerful and absolutely poignant message about orienting yourself towards like responsibility and like imposing order on chaos, and I think it resonates powerfully with a lot of people because it's fucking true. And so everyone who shits on him, like usually like just like he's a crackpot, he's crazy, but like no, he's definitely got like a lot. He's like literally like as far as I know like the only person who has talked about this stuff in the way that he's talked about it, like as a big public figure. Like I don't think anyone else is talking about it like this way. And I think it's also like original work. Like I've never heard of another philosopher who talks about the stuff in the way he's talking about it. Not to say that it doesn't exist in the zeitgeist, but definitely like he's putting his finger on it, and he's like the first one. And so I think he deserves massive respect for that.
The way he communicates it, bringing this mythic perspective to everyday life, like the mythic idea of imposing order, clean your room, just like or clean your penis, as people joke. It's if anything kind of sad that something that should be so simple has been so profound, and he still to the day talks about people who transform their life hearing his message. I'm just like, how sorely lacking that idea is. Which I think, I mean, even being left-leaning is a response to a lot of ways the culture, at least until recently, seemed to have been very much about more freedom, more openness, very much relativistic. And so it could make sense for people to like not even hear or understand the point of having order and structure. And the fact that in a lot of cases no one's going to give it to you. You have to choose yourself to make that happen.
Okay, this is what I want to tell you, which is like I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited about this. I think that this is actually like, so what I've been working on is basically like an algorithm for how to live well, right? And I need to switch to this charger sheet, but and like so this is like, I think I probably told you this before, like one of my fundamental things, you want to maximize gain, not minimize loss, right? Because there's more latent potential in the unknown. And there's also like, I think I've also mentioned to you, although I've developed it a bit since we last talked, but it meant like this like whole theory about how like ethics influence your social interactions, how like people who are like, there's absolute and relative ethics produce individualism and collectivism respectively, and those two things also produce different like ways of relating to people. And so these are the developments that I've worked on since the last talk, which is that like individualism, the right analogy is minesweeping. You don't know where your boundaries should stop and other people's boundaries should begin necessarily without explicitly checking. And because individualism is a product of absolute ethics, which is like you have an external list of things that are like right and wrong. Literally, in order to like know how to act with another person, you need to update your list, usually like frequently. It's like, so that's the analogy of minesweeping. It's like you have to check in in small increments to make sure like, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? You know, and which is fine. It's very explicit. You're very unlikely to have any like negative interactions that way, but also it's very slow. And it's just not really that conducive for most things. And so the analogy for the collectivist mode of relating is crowd surfing. It's like literally you can trust that other people can uphold their own boundaries. That's not your job to worry about. So you just launch yourself into social situations. You don't have to worry about checking to see what is okay and what isn't, especially if other people are around people who care about them. You can assume that they have the social support that they need to reject unwanted attention and advances. And so it's just not your job to worry about it. They worry about it. You just do whatever you want, and you just stop when someone says stop, right? It's like go until someone says stop, as opposed to stop until someone says go, right? Completely different way of approaching social life. And
I would just say I would still see that as individualistic. But
really,
like when I think of collective, I think like there are these imposed norms that everyone has to follow. And that your boundary might be different, but everyone has to say the boundary's here. Like, you go on a date with a girl, you have to be back by 10. That's the norm. Every household has this. Maybe you're mature enough, she's mature enough to like not do something stupid later. But it's like it's still kind of externally imposed. Like what I see you're saying is like with individualism, you're either constantly checking, you're proactively seeing what the boundary is, or you just people have to actively say when their boundary is crossed, and you can just do. But both is just like like everyone still has their individual boundaries in those cases versus a collective norm that everyone has to follow no matter what.
Yeah, I guess there definitely are differences. Like I think that like this way of relating to people, the collectivist mindset, and I'm using that word collectivist a lot, but I'm not sure if it's really the right word, because I think it's really what it is it's a result of relativist ethics, right? Like when you are a relativist in your ethics, you actually like need other people to be around to tell you what is right and wrong. You don't really know what's right and wrong unless there are other people around. And that's why it's relativistic though, is that like it depends on who's around, right? But also like you literally don't know what you're doing or why you're doing it unless there are other people around as a relativist. And so it's like there's also like I think a powerful component that like literally you can't do this like crowd surfing technique way of relating to people unless there is a group. Like literally like in a one-on-one situation, it would be like you might be able to do it for like one or two interactions, but for anything really past that, it's just like it's way too like assuming and like and forward for one-on-one interaction. It's really like it's a group dynamic. That's what it is. And so like I don't know. I think there's a lot of caveats like in like calling it individualist versus collectivist, because I think also like those two words are sort of like associated with cultures, and I'm not sure that it necessarily applies even in specifically individualist or collectivist cultures. Like I know a lot of people in America who use this way of relating, and okay, so like it gets kind of complicated because I think like Black culture in America is very collectivist as opposed to like white culture, which is very individualist. But I think it goes even further than that. I think this might not just be like it's not really like a nation or even like a subgroup sort of cultural thing. It might literally just also be a product of like wealth culture. You know? I think like wealthy cultures are probably much more likely to be individuals. Yeah, sure. and poorer cultures more relativistic. Right? And so I'm not sure if those two words, individualistic and relativistic, individual and collectivist, if those two words are like really the descriptor that I'm looking for, because I think it might be like highly correlated, high overlapping, but maybe not exactly like that. It's I should probably say absolute and relative more, or just use those analogies like Minesweeper and crowd surfing more, because that's really the descriptor. Is like this different way of relating with people. But yeah.
I definitely see that, and I feel like thinking of the Me Too movement. I think a lot of abuses need to be pointed out, but I think part of where it started to fade is when there were cases where people didn't say no, and they were expecting the signs to be read, and then they blasted someone for not picking up the signs, and it was just like this difference of approach of like someone waiting for no, like maybe they're a little dumb, maybe they're inexperienced, maybe they were mean, who knows, but the person didn't say no. It's kind of in a gray area, versus the other person was expecting that constant mind sweeping of checking in.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the reason I bring it up though is that like when you start to crowd surf, when you like consciously start to crowd surf, it's very chaos facing. And when I started doing it at first, it works so well, by the way. It is so much better as like a social mode. So it's so much better as a social mode to be a crowd surfer. Like it's 10 out of 10. I don't know. It's like it's orders of magnitude better for just being like extroverted and like meeting people. Like if your goal is to meet people,
and you're not so self-conscious, just like constantly. Is this okay? Is this okay? I've been on a date like that and it was miserable. It's just like there's no free flowing. There's like no just like discovery of something new. You're supposed to already know everything about yourself and what you want.
Okay, so like this is where I started thinking about the order and chaos stuff, is because like as I started to do the crowd surfing technique more, I realized like talking to people is fine, but there's like in the space between talking with people, often you start to feel like very overwhelmed. And I realize it's because okay, this is how I've started to think about it. You can tell me how you think it's for that. I think imposing order on chaos actually gives you energy. And so there's like a fundamental, I think, difference in perspective where in life where it's like if you okay, so I've got several kind of overlapping ideas, and I'll sort of lay them all out. But like one of them is like a way of thinking about it, like life isn't good unless it's easy versus life isn't good unless it's challenging. And that it might be the same way of saying like if you want an easy life, a good life because it's easy, then often those people are oriented towards order because they're seeking to be in high order environments because it's not as labor intensive. But the problem is that it's kind of bad for you in the long run because I think what this is I'm not 100% sure about this. This is a supposition that like I think the primary thing that gives you energy in life is imposing order on chaos. And so if you're seeking high order environments, there's not very much chaos to impose order on. It's a target not rich environment, right? But if you are the opposite, if life is good because it's challenging because it's hard, and then often you're oriented towards chaos. You're seeking out chaos so you can impose order on it, which is a target rich environment, and it often starts like a virtuous sort of cycle. You find chaos, you impose order on it, which gives you energy to turn your attention towards more chaos, impose order on it, and you sort of like
grow your power, confidence.
Yeah, you like build momentum. And I think this is like maybe I don't know if it's the right way, but it's a way I think of describing like the difference between like the good life, like the good way of making decisions, and like a less good way of making decisions. Like the maximizing gain versus minimizing loss. I think this is that. And I don't know.
Yeah, it brings up a lot. I mean, my first thought with too much order just makes me think more socially. This idea of decadence, when society is too comfortable, people just kind of get lazy. Their just needs are met. No one has incentive to strive for anything. I think that's a diagnosis a lot of people have for right now of our level of material comfort. There's no new frontiers. Technology doesn't seem like it's changing. There's like nothing really capturing people's imagination to try to. There's like no chaos out there people see to try to impose order on. Versus, having something to strive towards is. I mean, that makes me think of just understanding ourselves as complex beings, and even complexity theory sense that we're antifragile, as Talib would say, that we need some friction, some pain in order to even become resilient and strong. Our immune system, that's the only example that comes to mind. That's the one a lot of people cite, that you pretty much can't get anywhere. But also that there's like a zone of tolerance for how much pain you can have. At a certain point is going to break you. Finding that sweet spot of challenges within your scope, and then you grow in your ability. But the idea of just wanting a comfortable, easy life, when people talk about that, I can't really relate because it just sounds boring. Like easy job, nice friendships, talk about a show, like I don't even know what. Just a lot of people just want that, which cool for them, but there's more out there that seems a lot more interesting and fun and worth the hard times.
Okay, so another thing that I think is like a fundamental supposition of mine is that like all of the dialectics are sort of cycling. So like in this term, just sort of like with the help of ChatGPT, I call it a cyclical interleaving progression, which is that like interleaving is a word that I guess they use for, it's like a specific type of studying practice where you sort of like mix your study topics together to sort of reinforce them in your mind. And it's like, so it's like you study one thing and then you go study another thing, but you try your best to like use the last thing you were studying as like the context to remember the thing you're studying right now. And I think it's cool, but like the idea is that like you cycle between topics, and so like that's the interleaving. But I think that like a lot of times, have I ever told you about my my learning theory about the compound concepts? It's so I was working on an education startup. Was it a couple years ago? I guess it was a couple years ago. And I was thinking a lot about educational theory because I was trying to figure out like what's the best way to like teach someone, and so I coined this term. I think it might not be original. Like I think other people might have already coined these terms, but basically like there's a concept where you have to put together two or more other concepts, often incomplete concepts, in order to describe a complete concept. And so compound concept. And the thing about compound concepts is that often it can be made of compound concepts, and often that's what a skill tree is just like a collection of compound concepts, right? And so
I mean, what's not a compound concept? Like, so much need to know, like.
Yeah, there's like it's everywhere in learning, right? And it's kind of conspicuous now that because now that you have a word for it, it's weird that you've never heard this described before because it's like you're constantly using this in education, right? And so like that was one thing that I was thinking about a lot. Like it's like I think a lot of people think they're dumb, not because they actually are, but because like their teachers are not outlining compound concepts when they write them. So it's like if you're going to launch into a compound concept that might be like arbitrarily deep and complex, and nobody has told you like, oh, it's going to be this deep and complex, at the start, then so you're assuming like a linear progression where like each concept is complete, and then like you get to a bunch of concepts that aren't complete until they're all assembled, and nobody told you that. You might think that you're dumb because it's not making sense to you. I think that happens a lot of education. But
It even makes you think, because I taught for a year, so the idea of scaffolding was really important. You have to first start at the basic, to start pulling ideas, synthesizing them into bigger ideas, and just, you need to have like faith that the last teacher actually gave them the earlier concept. Like, I was teaching 7th grade, and kids did not know water wasn't alive. Like, they're 12, but like the concept of life was not seem clear to them. And I was supposed to be teaching life science, so that was eye-opening.
Yeah. Do you ever find any kids that couldn't read?
Maybe not very competent readers, but no one who couldn't read at all. And some of that was also just learning English.
What are we doing with that?
Compound
concepts. I was going to wrap it into something else. I don't remember what it was now. But
interweaving.
Okay. So I think that all the dialectics are okay. So like you have cyclical interleaving progressions. So the interleaving part is that like you naturally have to like sort of, you can't focus all of your attention on just one side of it. You have to rhythmically like go back and forth. And if it's just two sides in dialectic, that's fine. Sometimes in order to progress in a particular topic or area, you'll have like things that are more complex than just two sides. So like you might have like 5 or 10 or whatever, and you kind of have to like make your rounds and just like do them all like separately, but like also like interchange between them. and eventually you get to the point where you have built them all up enough to where you put them together. And so like, but I think this also applies to all the dialectics. Everyone is like sort of living out a sort of like rhythmic progression in the dialectic. Like you have both sides, both ways of perceiving something, and you naturally have to like spend more time on one side or the other. But not all of your time. You have to necessarily switch your attention or like your perspective to the other side at some point in order to continue in the other side. And so that's like a really shitty way of explaining it. I think I want to find a better way of explaining it because I feel like this is very like fundamental. But so like,
give an example.
I guess order and chaos. Like
like concrete example. Like have you done this? I've like read one thing then another.
Definitely like I mean, yeah, I've done it, and at the time, the way I thought of it was like it's like a helical progression in time. It's like there's like 5 different things, and I'm sort of like cycling my attention between them, and through time, it sort of like describes like a helix because like if you imagine time passing through me, I don't know, that's like a weird way of saying it, but I noticed that like there were like 5 things I needed to like build up and put together in order to like grow or like I don't know, like build myself in a particular area, and then so I was doing it, but I noticed like I couldn't do any one of them at once, even though like I think I would prefer to like just focus all my attention on one of them and build it all the way up and then switch my attention, but I couldn't. Like I had to like only do like 1 to 20% and then switch my attention to the other 1 to 20%, and it felt like I could never like I couldn't just do one side. I had or one part of it to completion. I had to cycle, like, and just like go around the circle until everything was complete. And
why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Like were you getting bored or not retaining as much, or?
I think that they're okay. No, I think it's just that like rhythm is a part of reality, I guess. Like vibration, like all the molecules vibrate, and atoms and electrons and everything's in constant motion, and you can't like I don't know. I'm not really satisfied with that answer either, even though I think there's truth in it. I think that there's definitely some like fundamental law or like nature of the universe where like you can't really just be one side of yourself until the other side. You need to be both in some proportion all the time. And I think like it's kind of like a amperage and voltage don't exist in isolation. They're both part of each other, or like they're both part of what it means to have electricity. And so and it's like that. Like I think all the dialectics have a relationship like that, where it's like you really can't just have one side. You necessarily have both in some proportion. Even if you are heavily on one side, you still have the other in some proportion. And I think that like exists in all of the dialectics. It's like
it's kind of yin yang.
Yeah.
The kernel of the other half is within it, and if you go to one direction, you just end up.
I forgot about that. That there's like the dots in each side. Yeah. That's a really beautiful analogy. I think yin and yang.
It's a brilliant symbol.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking because that's what I've been doing. Like I have books, physics, biology, psychology, history, spirituality, and just I have been kind of bouncing. And I was kind of just like intuitively doing it, kind of just like, I don't want to just like stick in like one lane and just like dig too deep in one direction. But that's why I liked hearing about this. Because it's like, I am constantly, so I am also trying to synthesize all of them. So it makes sense, like I'm on this plane of analysis and now I'm over here. And then it just helps it all kind of come together.
Yeah.
Instead of just ending up in a hole of ideas. Yeah. And then it's harder to like transition to another way maybe. I think naturally I can easily just get stuck in anything. And so following that curiosity, where that spark is, has been an active process for me.
So you're doing all this analysis. Oh, actually, I have like a little cue. My phone has battery issues. So you're doing all this.
An external battery, that would help.
This is an external battery on the back of it. It's like
Nice.
it's like glued to the back. That'll help this. It doesn't really charge it fast enough to keep it from dying because the battery has issues. So
I have one that might be fast enough.
no, that's okay. I'll just do this for like 20 minutes and switch back into it.
Okay.
So you're reading all this like this ancient perspective. See like, okay, I might have put words in your mouth. Is your goal to find like the most fundamental dialectic or like the most fundamental perspective?
Most
thing?
fundamental principles.
Yeah. Okay.
I think there interact dialectically, but I think there's a plurality of them. But there's a finite plurality. There's not just like an infinite number of general universals. And so, I mean, that's part of like where I'm just like neurotically reading so much is I just like want, if nothing but just so much evidence to be my case of like, I'm not just trying to be some mystical woo-woo new theory of everything type of person. There's just all these other people have hinted in these directions. I'm just bringing these ideas together. And one way I just feel like I'm doing what Jordan Peterson did, except hopefully better.
Yeah. Same.
And but you know, I also have my own that are kind of woo-woo inspirations to this, like Hermetic philosophy, as above, so below, astrology, which I think is the one somewhat popular framework that even ventures towards this. Like the whole idea of like general qualitative universals is like foreboded in modernity. Like you saying you know what other cultures think and how they operate or this or that, and there's just all these reasons that is the Foucauldian is all just power dynamics, everything's about power. Like there's all these reasons to not even try to look in this direction. And I mean, I think that's also part of what made Jordan powerful, is that he did offer what has been a perennial dialectic that seems as primary as one can be as a way to frame your everyday life. That clearly resonated with lots of people. And even in that way, I'm not even going to bother saying that what I'm finding is the truth. But if it's incredibly useful to the same degree that, you know, something that is true or predictive can be, then shouldn't that matter?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. I guess you preach the other part. I think exactly the same way. Like the maybe the truth doesn't exist. Absolute truth is probably like a silly thing. It's a silly notion. I'm not sure that that's like a useful thing to even think about. But relative truth absolutely exists. And I get so annoyed at like people who are like existentialists or absurdists or nihilists who like say things like there is no truth and leave it at that. It's like, what the fuck? Of course there is truth. Like there's relative truth everywhere, and those relative truth. It's like the relative truths are so true that they might as well be absolute. But I mean, but saying absolute truth doesn't exist. But relative, it's like everything is relative, but not infinitely. And that's just like everything. I get so annoyed when people say like everything is relative and stop. Like, okay, you're dumb. And especially like people who like thinking, or at least like who are interested in philosophy. And I'm just like, okay, like what's going on with you that you think that that's like a fair, reasonable thing to say?
My one sympathy is just because that's how I used to be.
Okay.
But like I grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
I grew up very much in this idea of absolute truth, absolute good.
Mm.
And so when that kind of shattered in my early teen years, like it just like went from one extreme to the other. Like there is absolute truth, there is no truth at all.
Yeah.
And I think it just took time to reach that point of
Mm.
recognizing that there's better or worse. Doesn't mean that there's just like best and the worst.
The rationalists, or like what is it, the less wrong type folks, like that way of saying it though is like so powerful. Being less wrong is actually like the goal, because I don't know if you can do right, but like being less wrong is what it means to be better. Like it is what it means to have like a better life, you know. No. Is it the rationalists, like the community of the effective altruists, whatever?
No.
Yeah, those folks get a lot of flack, and understandably, but like that way of saying it is right. It to me, or at least like that is, yeah.
It's a good heuristic.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. I guess we've talked a bit about your project, but I don't recall you calling it an algorithm before. Like, what do you mean by that?
Like, okay, so it kind of started with me asking the question, or at least it started with a few things. Like I think initial frustration with being like a hardcore introvert, and just like being like extremely aware that my life sucked really bad, and also just like really like frustrated with how many people were just sort of like introversion is fine. Also, there is no solution for that. You're an introvert because it's part. It's who you are. It's part of you. And so, good luck with that. And it's just like there's so much like fucking
I don't think that's
destructive and stupid rhetoric about that. And so I was just like. I initially discovered that like you don't have to be an introvert, but like literally just through my own logical explorations, like I was like, oh, like introversion might be a perspective, not like an intrinsic part of you, and that happened, and then later on I had sort of like I don't know, I had a good friend who very smart, very young, and just like lived life totally differently than me, in a way that just like felt orders of magnitude better. Like, even though he's like, I think he is literally smarter than me, but he would make better decisions with the same information, like repeatedly over time. And I was just like, okay, he's obviously doing. He has a different philosophy than me that is allowing him to make better, like better use of life than I do, given the same circumstances. And I was just like, what the fuck is that? And then I like, and then I was doing a lot of psychedelics. And especially in one specific acid trip, it just like hit me so hard and so profoundly that like this is a describable thing that I can definitely figure out. And then when I realized that, I was like, okay, now I have to figure it out. Like that, like, and then I started like coming up with this language like you should maximize gain, not minimize loss, and like turning your attention towards the latent potential in the unknown. I think that's like the right way to live. Like there is a right way to live. I think that is like
back to what we were saying, wider ways to live.
Yeah. No, I mean it's like the right way to live is not a particular way of living. It's a type. It's like a set of ways of reacting to like types of stimulus. You know, and like there are like types of decisions that are more efficient than others. Really, whatever your goals are, there are types of decisions that are better ways of achieving your goals. And
you're trying to find like the most general, like, anyway, principles, heuristics, tactics towards different crossroads.
So like ostensibly and definitely literally, like my goal for my project has been to like figure out how to describe how to be social, because I was bad at it and I wanted to do it better, but I couldn't find anyone who who could describe it to my satisfaction. And so I've like been working on doing that better. I think I have done it better, but also like I think that it all points to this like all of these like sub theories about like romance and like the influence of ethics in like your social life and I don't know, all my other like social theory explorations all point to this sort of like fundamental dialectic of like I think what it is this order chaos thing, like orient yourself towards chaos because chaos when you impose order on chaos it gives you energy. It's like chaos is your fuel. You should be oriented towards it, not away from it. And it's just like yeah, just like this is I think like the algorithm for life. Like if you want to live well, this is how you do it. And
face challenges.
Yeah.
It's like adventure.
Yeah, exactly. It's also like it's like a better way of thinking about and describing you know The Secret and I hate The Secret, but like this whole like pseudo religious sort of like self-actualization, like what do they call it, manifestation, law of reciprocity, all this like woo-woo stuff that has like a kernel of truth in it. I also really wanted to describe that because it's like I think this is what that is. I don't know if I told you yet, but like I don't know, I really want to describe this. I feel like there are like some simple ways of describing this. It's just like it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just like orient yourself towards what you want, not away from what you don't want. Like and that might be like the most simple way of describing it. But
I was kind of thinking of The Secret with that, except less dumb way to frame it.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just occupying your mind with what could go wrong, all the problems. Like that's where your attention lies, instead of actively seeking the opportunity. And I mean, you need some prevention from worst case scenarios, but for sure, dedicating yourself more. I mean, for me, it was like going from being very pessimistic, like a cynical, relativistic atheist, just like. I haven't even read Kohlberg, but the idea of the leap of faith, he has that in terms of God, but I just see that in terms of anything. Like, you just have to take the leap. Like, things aren't going to get better unless you actually try to make them better. It's not just going to magically happen while you're sitting in pessimism.
Yeah, you have to take risks. And so, like, what is the algorithm that you have in your life for taking risks? I think there's an optimal algorithm. And so... Sometimes I'm a little bit skeptical that it can be described neatly, but I definitely think it can be described. Like if no other way than just by like outlining the silhouette by all the things that it isn't. You know, like you can definitely like narrow it down to the point where it might as well have been like explicitly described. And I really want to do that. I feel like that is like extremely powerful and important. And I just like
it's helpful.
Yeah,
because I mean that's why I asked about algorithm, because that word to me sounds like very, very structured approach. When I think anything having to do with lived experience is always like relative to me is like kind of tainted by this idea of like supreme relativism. The things that are like contextual or relational and you have to participate in them with these things, there's always more factors than you can ever account for. But if you can at least know what something's not, you can get a better sense of what is there.
I'm also kind of like, okay, here's something that recently I've become aware of, which is that like I think I'm gonna be done with this project soon. Like I think I've like recently sort of like found the capstone. I'm not finished, I think describing it to my satisfaction, but I know what it is now, which is that like I think that okay, so what it is in social theory, maximizing gain. Maybe like the right word to describe this mode is maximizing versus minimizing. I like that terminology, but like maximizing, what it leads to in interactions with other people is that like you have an optimistic outlook. Your orientation is towards the future, towards your hopes, towards your desires, naturally creative, naturally expressive, naturally confident and carefree, right? It's like all the things you want to be. And the problem is that when you are around other people who are not like that, who are minimizing, who are focused on like protecting themselves, on looking to the past, this like causal deterministic way of reasoning rather than teleological reasoning. I'm obsessed with teleology, even though like I'm not sure that teleology is necessarily like the right word. I think it definitely starts there, but just like
having some goal, some purpose, direction.
Yeah, but it's like the problem is like in the conflict when you, as a maximizer, interact with people who are minimizers. What do you do? And I think like I finally figured out that the natural thing that you should do as a maximizer is lead minimizers. And that is awesome, I think, which is that like your perspective is fundamentally better as a maximizer than minimizers' perspective is. And that doesn't mean though that like they're wrong and they shouldn't have their own autonomy. It just means that like okay, I think the dating analogy is pretty good because often I don't want to say this is a male female, but then I'll just say this is something I've experienced a lot. Okay, so like as a man on a date with a woman, often like her attention is not always, but often her attention is on the things that she doesn't want to happen. Because a lot of women are like, I guess afraid of being taken advantage of. And so it's strange because often they will have like stated goals, but the stated goals are always things that they don't want to happen. Like they're like, I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to have sex on the first date. I don't want like all these negative things to happen. But their attention is on that, not what they want, right? And so like the problem with that for them is that like they're not really in control of they have way less agency than they think they have because like they don't know what they want, so they're just focusing on what they don't want. So that means that like as long as whatever I want to happen isn't something that they don't want to happen, then I'm totally in control. And they don't realize it. Like and often like you can lead people, like people will say what they don't want, but actually like it really what that just means is that like they are open to everything that is something that they don't want. And so like you can lead in any direction as long as it's like one of these like handful of things that they don't want to happen. They're totally fine with being like led in that direction, and you can lead people right up to the things that you want to happen. And also like and often it's things that like are way past the things that they didn't want to happen. Like and I so like it's weird, it's sketchy because like in our society people are really taught to worship absolute ethics. And I don't know if this like I kind of assume that this is like a Western academic culture thing, and so I'm not sure how much this is like pervaded the rest of the world in academic settings, but where is it going at? So there's a lot of like just like people just like have no awareness that like it's like they would think like okay like I don't know. It's basically like it's just like they have way less agency than they think they do because of where their focus is, and so often it's just like it's a matter. It's kind of like they'll say things that they don't want, and usually what it amounts to, because I'm focused on what I do want, is literally just a test of persistence. Like they're saying that they don't want that, but really what they mean is they don't know what they want. So like if I'm just persistent enough about dancing around that thing that they want, it's like I mean like it doesn't have to be something that is like contrary to what they want, but like often it's like, okay, for example, they might say like they don't want to kiss on the first date, and that doesn't happen very frequently, but it's like it's an example. And so like if I do want to kiss on the first date, like they might let me like hold their hand, give them hugs, kiss them on the neck, you know, like, or just like there's a lot of stuff that they might be okay with, because it's not like the explicit thing that they, and just like, and so I might like go way past like the level of familiarity that they're expecting to have prevented by not kissing on the first date is totally surpassed in ways that they weren't expecting, because like their defense is at a particular point, and I just like totally circumvented it. So like the level of intimacy is way past kissing often. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because it's just like I don't care about the kiss. I'm going for intimacy, right? And so it's just like often what ends up happening is like I'm just leading them. In ways that they in ways that like they have no agency, but because of where their focus is, they're not focused on what they want. They're focused on what they don't want. And for a while I was kind of like conflicted about it. I was like, it feels like I am subverting people's agency, because like, but I think that's just because I've been taught in a Western sort of mindset to worship absolute ethics, and but really ethics aren't just absolute; they're also relative, and you need both sides of that coin. Everyone does need both sides of the coin, and everyone uses both sides of that coin in different parts of their life, in different scenarios. We've just been like especially because of the Western academic influence, we've been taught to think in absolute ethics, especially in dating circumstances. And so people are used to like okay, like whatever I say is what you're supposed to respect, but actually like there's also what you do. And I think it's much more important and fundamental to actually respect what you do, not what you say. And so I just like, I think what it means to be a maximizer around minimizers is that you end up leading them. You end up like being a leader by default. If you are trying to be efficient in the face of their efficiency, it just turns out that they will end up following you. Or if they don't want to follow you, that's fine, of course. But often
that's where their agency kind of is too.
Yeah, they do have agency. It's just like their agency is a more limited version of agency than your agency, and often like the way you're doing things is more efficient the way they're doing things, and they actually want to come along with you. They actually want to participate because
they want to be led.
Yeah, they like.
I mean, yeah, thinking of that, just like part of it is like you have the perspective that you have the agency, you're leading. You also have to perform for them. Like they have this wide open field, and they just have their nose. But there might be like other vague senses of like, oh, that's actually really good, or like, oh, that's kind of lame or weird, that isn't as firm. It's like, I mean, in thinking of in gender terms of like humans don't have that much sexual dimorphism, and so theories are mixed of like how much male dominance was part of reproductive patterns of humans, and how much women getting to be choosy has been part of it. And like birds are a great example of that, because female birds can fly away, they can't be forced so easily. So male birds have to like do all this peacocking and all this work to attract their attention. And they have their nose, which is like, you're not as good as the guy over there. But the dude is leading, he's like doing the crazy dance and building the crazy decorative nest. But she still has agency, but she has agency as like a receiver of what he's doing. Yeah.
So I guess like the point I'm getting at is that you without realizing it, you limit your own agency and your own autonomy by being a minimizer. And so I think like I would encourage everyone to be a maximizer. Like focus on what you want, don't focus on what you don't want. and also I would say that to all of these girls as well that I go on dates with, but also like the fact that they are minimizing does not affect me maximizing. It and of course they have autonomy to choose how much they want to follow my leadership, but often by default they are ceding power to my leadership just by where their focus is. And so like this is like the natural sort of like conclusion of my social theory is that like be a maximizer, which implies that you will naturally become a leader, which implies that you will have to like grapple with the types of decisions and like sort of like questions that leaders have to deal with. And so like I think that will be like the final thing that I need to reason out and work out is like what are the right kind of decisions that you should make as a leader, right? And also like, and then what are like the optimal types of things that you should aim for with that kind of power and agency. But yeah, that's like, so like I think it's funny, I've used this analogy a couple of times, that like I discover my theories usually like starting at the tips and working down to the root. And then usually when I find the root, it's some like absurdly simple axiomatic thing that describes the rest of the tree that took me forever to figure out backwards. And I think this is another one of those situations where like, so I figured out like theory of romance, the ethics thing. I had this whole thing about like social proof and like introversion and extroversion and all these things, but they're all sort of like downstream of this thing that's upstream, which is like maximize gain, and it leads you to all the rest of these, and or at least like it from this one thing, the rest of these things sort of like naturally flow, and also likewise like the inverse of all of these like ways that I think you should live. Like I think you should be an extrovert. I think that you should maximize gain. I think that you should be more relative in your ethics. I think that I don't know if there is you should be more challenging in your relationships, and or at least like challenge other people more in your relationships, and like all these things are actually just a natural product of this maximizing way of like viewing the world. Look to the future, look to your desires and aspirations, don't look past, don't try to minimize loss, stop focusing on protecting yourself, and it just naturally leads to all the other things, and yeah.
It's a quick snapshot.
Yeah, but it's in every situation, like if you start with the root, you get the best explanation, or at least like the briefest and most descriptive inference, I guess. But the more interesting explanation, I think, actually starts with the tips and works back into the root. So
from the question and getting to the core. Yeah. Especially to engage an audience. That's how you gotta do it. Which is the opposite of how I think. So it's gonna be interesting.
But yeah. Okay, so here's the thing though, is that like now that I have like the scope, finally, I just worked this out like last week. Or at least like I finally figured out like, okay, I have the whole scope. I can finally like start sitting down to like plan and write my book instead of just like researching, which is cool. But also I sort of feel like I might stop working in the philosophical vein soon. Or at least like if I do keep working on it, it will be in a completely different area, because I feel like the desire and the momentum to keep working on it has like completely shifted in like attitude inside of me, and that's been really weird. Like in the last week, I've just like for the last year, I felt like extremely consistent sort of like draw and like purpose to like focus on this and to like figure it out, and like it's been like and just like it's been a noticeable and like very interesting difference in attitude in the last week. And so I don't know. I'm excited to finish describing it. I'm not sure though that I have any other like philosophical pursuits after this. Yeah.
Could take time for one to come up.
I kind of hope not though. Like I've really been like the best year of my life. I've had so much fun, and so like.
So you don't want more of that?
I do. I just don't know if there is more of it. Like my interest has been very pragmatic the entire time. Like I want these tools so I can use them. First, and then I can give them to other people. But like, and now that I have them, I don't really know of any other like. It felt like. I don't know. It felt like. What's the right way of saying it? Like, I've often said like I feel like. I was born to do this, you know, and now that it's done, it's like I don't know. I'll definitely find something else that I feel like I was born to do probably, but like this particular thing feels done, or like it feels like
it's complete.
Yeah, and that's really weird. It's really weird. I didn't actually expect that it would like feel so concluded, but it definitely feels concluded. Yes.
And it's also been a week.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah,
I can't relate, so because I've been thinking about my ideas for like a decade. But as of 6 months ago, I finally came up with a framework for a decade worth of interest in reading and things, of how to bring it all together. So that feeling of completeness kind of sounds incredible. I mean, where does that leave you in terms of, like, do you imagine writing on it in the future, or just now that you've completed it for yourself, you're going to embody it?
Definitely embody it. Okay, so I don't know if I've told you about this, but I had this thing where I personify evolution. Okay, so like I probably told you that I think that the purpose of life is to evolve, and
I'd say the purpose of the cosmos is to evolve.
Oh, interesting. Wait, why?
Just out of that, everything being one.
Life is the cosmos. Or life is part of the cosmos.
Like psyche and cosmos are, I think there's like a fundamental monism to them, but also like complex structures just emerge spontaneously out of the laws of the universe, and it just like keeps happening, and like here we are, like we evolve because the universe evolved. Like things also like of course return to entropy too, but like evolution is definitely part of the story, and that's what we can live out if we choose to.
Yeah. And it's like the purpose of life, should you want a purpose, is to evolve. Like it's the most fundamental thing. And I did this thing ever since I had this like crazy mushroom trip where I basically felt like I was talking with a person, and I felt like the conversation was romantic. But I felt like it was like talking with the universe, but it was like a romantic conversation. And I've had this feeling for a long time. Okay, so like the reason that I've told you about my theory of romance, like challenge is fundamental because you need challenge in order to grow. Like the purpose of romance, the purpose of like the optimal relationship is to expand your maximum potential, not just help you achieve your current potential, right? And so there is this like linear gradient of challenge that exists in the universe against which all living things are challenging themselves, and they're not all in the same places on that gradient, but the gradient exists, and the gradient it continues forever into like the imagined distance, right? There's always going to be a next level at which like you're going to have to challenge yourself against something in the universe in order to grow and become better. And so like but for me, it's always been like this really weird thing where it feels like at every point in the process, like the process is like uniquely suited to me, which by that I mean like I could so easily imagine that like the steps in like the evolutionary staircase might be bigger than I can step up, you know, like I could imagine that's true, but it's never been true so far, and I actually think it never will be because because the gradient is linear. There aren't actually steps. It's linear. It's like there's always going to be like as fine of a fraction of challenge more as you need there to be, and so it's kind of like that thing you were mentioning before. Like you need all of your learning experiences to be like within your ability, right? But because of because the gradient is linear, the next challenge is always going to be wherever you place your attention, which is always going to be within your ability. So it's like
Hopefully. I made that mistake.
I mean, like I don't think that the universe cares about us, but definitely it's built for us. Like
I don't get to play his favorites.
Yeah, I don't think it plays favorites, but it's like we were made for this environment. Like we were made like, and I think that like so like there will never be a point at which like while you are still living, there isn't some way in which you can't like pit yourself against the next level of challenge. And
yeah, that's true.
So like I think that's why it felt romantic when I was talking to the universe, because like it has almost felt like the challenges were built for me specifically. And then I realized like, it's not that they were built for me specifically, it's the universe was built for me. Like, and it's built for everyone. Like everyone is on the same linear gradient. Everyone is going to have like a personal, like deeply personal and like like almost romantic relationship with growth, right? Where it's like that same way where it's like in human relationships we have to find like our complement, right? Like somebody mutual challenge is very important. Like you need to be, I need to be able to challenge you, but also you need to be able to challenge me. If only one of us can challenge the other, then it's not balanced and it's not going to last. But in our relationship with the universe, we're always going to have our perfect complement, and that's why like I think in Christianity, Jesus is actually painted as your eternal romantic partner. I think because like the ancient like Christian church was seeing what I'm seeing, which is that like there's always like a complementary level of challenge that exists in the universe to test you and help you grow. And I forgot why I started talking about this, but
around romance. Your romance.
Okay. I don't know. It's so. Oh yeah, I remember. So like, even though I might be done with this project, I don't think I'm done. I just might be done with philosophy. I think I might move on to like business next, or at least like I think the next step for me might be taking what I've learned. I hope I will turn this into a book. Although like every step of the process for me has always been like intensely sort of like intuition led. Like I've never known what the next step is going to be. I've always just sort of like been like, okay, what feels like the next step, and just like moved forward in that direction, and it usually works. So I'm going entirely based off feels. I don't know if it's probably not efficient, but it's just like what I'm left with when I don't really have direction.
And that's where fire is in you. Like it's probably efficient to head towards it that you're most interested in doing.
Yeah.
Even doing this, documenting the process as you go along, like that's something.
Yeah. Okay. Book writing is a lot. Yeah. Also, like, I think I don't anticipate this is going to take a short amount of time. Like, it'll probably be like a year-ish. Although, like, having the full scope of the arc of what I want to say sort of in mind dramatically limits like the potential, I don't know, chaos in like in the process. Like now that I actually have like a goal and like a finishing point, I feel like it's much more actionable to like think about like how long it'll take. So not that I've really done it that much yet, but I could probably bang out like a rough version of what I want to say in like a month, and like maybe like a polished version in like 6 months if I really focus on it. I'm not sure I'll focus on it exclusively though. So, but yeah, so like the next step now that I've been thinking about this is probably like turning myself into an influencer and trying to like also like figure out like all the business stuff that's related with that.
Yeah.
I do feel like sort of a strong sort of like I don't know, responsibility maybe to make money with it, which is kind of new, but definitely like I think that like this part of my growing process is like heretofore I have not cared very much about money in my life, and I think like that is a sign of immaturity, or at least like maybe like a sign of incomplete maturity, that like I haven't been in a place where caring about money was appropriate, but I think soon it will make a lot of sense. So I need to like find a way of like not just writing this, but also promoting it in a way that is like financially successful, because like financial success is like a barometer for like reach, maybe, and
yeah. It makes sense. I think that's kind of where I stall out in terms of my thinking, because I'm still so much in the passion phase, and just putting myself out there seems really scary. Something I'm still very confused around is just like how people brazenly like, here's my shit, gonna take up space and tell you all about it. But yeah.
Well, why? Why is that?
I mean, I could go into my childhood history and just like all the things that have been made into habits. Yeah, I think it's mainly that, just like breaking out of the self-fulfilling prophecy that I think, to your framing, is more of a deficit mindset of I mean, in a way, writing a book is even feels safer. Like, how do I make this into a engaging, interesting video? Although part of that also just feels the way my mind is wired. Is I just like I start with that what's at the root, and like in a way, this book is just like, here's everything, and now I can like find things that might be more accessible. I don't know.
Something I do want to say, because I feel like I glossed over it earlier, is that like this, I'm not sure the right way to frame this whole relative versus absolute ethics dichotomy. And there's like a reason that we focused probably on absolute ethics is because it's like safer. Like, it feels more concrete to focus on protecting yourself than it does to focus on, your best life, right? And I think that's like it's like a cultural, maybe societal manifestation why absolute ethics have like emerged as like almost the only thing that is emphasized in schools, is because like I don't know if there is like a right way of talking about relative ethics that doesn't like give
many reasons.
Like empower people who would misuse it. But also I think that's like it's kind of a red herring to say that like if somebody's going to misuse this cool new tool, then don't promote or talk about the new tool because it might be misused. That's like a really silly argument. And so I don't know what the right way of approaching that yet is. That like every time somebody says like, well, won't people misuse this? I'm like, I don't care. Like I don't think that that's my responsibility. I think that like people who are likely to do unethical shit aren't gonna be waiting for me to justify for them. They might use this as justification, but they're gonna do it anyway. I think they don't care. And so it's like for the people who do care though, they need better ways of navigating the world. And this is like the way to do it. It's like how do you know you're being ethical as a relative ethic, as a person with relative ethics? It's just like if other people say stop, you actually stop. That's how you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no way of necessarily I don't know. It's like there is no list of rules. It's relative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's why like the people really want there to be a list. It's because then you can like point and be like that person's not being ethical. But the problem with that is that like it's just not an efficient way of living if you apply that to your personal life.
Mm-hmm.
And really like I think the only like absolute ethics make much more sense on societal scale rather than personal scale. And there might be some truth to this. I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough. That like all of the dialectics you want to apply on
What's up?
How you doing?
different scales.
It's my brother Farley over there. Farley, this is Lucy.
How's it going?
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you mind shutting the door on the way out, please?
Huh?
You mind shutting the door?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me.
You also remind me of Kohlberg's model of morality, of like it's kind of developmental, but it like starts with me kids to like following set rules, following legal code being enforced from above. But he says at the very top is people having relative individual ethical codes, but also says that very few people can actually manage that.
Yeah.
Which is even kind of what
Wait,
Nietzsche
why?
says.
Why can you?
I haven't read directly. I mean, what I can think of is that, like, where's the line between what you've been taught is right and wrong and what you have deeply figured out for yourself is right and wrong? That's hard to know. I think some people, and like with that, like, because we're so unconscious, you might say this is right, but it's just self-serving, and you're just justifying your shitty behavior and saying it's like, but I'm an individual and I've raised myself to the point where I can choose this. That's just, it does have that situation where shitty people take advantage of something if they can, or but I think it's naive to not recognize that it's a thing that can happen, and to be able to articulate it well is fair. And I mean, the other thing I was thinking is with morality, like I love Jonathan Haidt's work, Moral Foundations Theory, because it's still very relative, it's relational, it's very...
Does he cover it in The Righteous Mind?
Yeah.
Okay, because I read The Righteous Mind, it's been a while, but...
Like just general like principles of like, people have morality around loyalty, they have around authority, following traditions, or where you are in a rank hierarchy. People have morality around caring for others, caring for the weak and vulnerable. That, like, those are like just general spheres and ways people work through their moral stances.
Yeah.
But it's not like this hard rule. Like, I love that book because he goes to task against like utilitarianism and deontological morality, or however you say it. And just like how like way too, like he just goes as far as saying autistic it is to like make morality into a calculation.
Yeah.
Like that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
It's just the same with theology of any goal. Like you can't reduce it to what something is. There's no, again, bring up algorithm. Like there's no black and white formula for how to get something. The world's too complicated. But there is better or worse ways, and there are some general maps that can help you. But I think as black and white as it could be is like having clear nose. Although it also makes me think that some people just don't have the confidence or security to say an explicit no. which is why I think the collective norm of like hard, fast rules around what you're supposed to do is why those have existed. I mean, it's one argument I hear, sexist or not, of like all the issues with the Me Too movement is that women don't often feel comfortable saying no.
Yeah.
And I think that requires a cultural change. If it's not, like, on average, most women will feel this way no matter what you say or do.
Yeah, that's like a really thorny problem, right? Because like I mean, okay, so like I guess I'm reminded of like some people freeze in bad situations, and so there's actually laws like if somebody doesn't say no, or then it's not the same thing as consent because some people freeze. Like people have been raped because they would freeze and just like let the rapist do whatever they want because they just like would just like I don't know disassociate so hard they're not there, right? And so I don't know. It's like like how do you talk about how do you talk about this sort of stuff? I don't know. It's like if I was able to teach a class on like how to be social, like one of the most simple and fundamental things is like reading body language, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and obviously if somebody's freezing up, that's like the most negative body language. Mm-hmm. But also like if you are autistic or it's like so bad with social cues that you don't read that as like a negative, then like that's like a totally different conversation. It's like if anyone isn't gonna say no, but their body language isn't saying no, then like I don't know. It's like that's so like there are different ways of saying no, and it's not just verbal, right? And I don't know, intentions matter so much because if your intention is to take advantage, you can probably technically read, no, I don't know, technically, not really, like, you could probably, like, legally mount a defense that what you did wasn't wrong. But if there was a camera on both of you and you could see the other person's body language, then, like, it would be very difficult to make that argument, like, because everyone can read body language, you know? So it's like, it's only in, like, these, like, areas of obscurity, not, I don't know if they actually are ambiguous, you know? It's, I don't know. I'm not really sure how to talk about that, but.
I mean, it makes me also think what you're proposing is like a framework. What's the word for it? More like a manifesto than like a strict guidebook.
Yeah.
That's supposed to inspire instead of like be an absolute.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's there are truth and relative. I don't know. Did I ever tell you? Okay, so like when I was a Christian, I had a theory, which looking back is very in line with me. But I had this theory that like, which is like very countercultural at the time, that like God doesn't care what you do; He cares why you do it. And this was like, so I had like multiple sort of like passages in the New Testament, especially, which, were you raised Christian? Okay, so like there's this one, Paul talks about meat sacrificed to idols not being sin for everyone to consume. He's like literally like, if you think it is sinful to eat that meat, then don't eat it because it's sinful for you. But if you don't, then it's fine. And that's like, that's in Romans, I think. And then there's like two or three other places where like he says something that is strongly in line with this sort of like insinuation that like he says in like two different places, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ. And one time he says it after he like lists a bunch of things that are like I forget what the list is. It's like you know, thieving, adultery, homosexuality. There's a bunch of things that he talks about that will like keep you out of heaven. And then immediately after he says, but there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ. And so like there's a strong insinuation in like multiple passages where he's like, it's not really about the letter of the law, it's about your intention, right? God doesn't care what you do, he cares why you do it. And like, and I think that that's a much more elegant and also strict measure of morality, because it's like your relationship with sin is actually based on your relationship with God, and also like what things are in your conscience, not actually what things you do, which is a much higher bar, because sin doesn't start with your actions, it starts with your intentions. And but also like whenever I told people about that in the church, nobody liked it. Everyone was like, well, what the fuck? Like, how are you gonna know what's right and wrong in other people? And I was like, you can't. It's like, you're not even supposed to. And they were like, nah, we don't like that. And I think like that is the response I'm going to get also with this, which is that like I'm going to be implying that like I don't know, like that like the right way to live is not necessarily like externally policeable, and but also like it's weird because like it's already like completely allowed in society to live this way. It's just not allowed to be an asshole, right? And there's like a lot of like I'll have to work really hard to tease out like if there is a way to identify externally someone's like intentions being good or bad, what are those markers? Because I think it's very important. Like the difference between like somebody who is maximizing gain and somebody who is just like focused on short-term gain might look very similar. But like really the difference is that like somebody who's trying to maximize gain is trying to do it over the greatest amount of time. Like so they're not interested in just short-term gain. They have at least one eye on the distant future. Whereas like people who are just looking for short-term gain usually are actually actively trying to disassociate from the consequences of their actions. And I don't know if there is like our external else for that, but that's like very important. Like
I'm skeptical there really can be.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, if I can vaguely think of like certain signs of like the dark triad and certain behaviors to look for being abused or exploited by someone, but
actually, I have a
sense. I think
I have a thing about this.
people begin to see themselves.
So yeah. There's like okay, so like I at one point I was like, because I was raised in a cult, I was like trying to figure out like what is the cult question? How do you know you're in a cult? And I think like the most fundamental like marker is reduced visibility, in or out. Like if other people can't see what you're doing in your relationships with a person or an organization, that's a red flag. And if you can't see out and see what other people are doing, you don't know what is normal, that's also a huge red flag. And usually if you combine those two things, it screams cult so loud, it doesn't happen very often. Even most cults don't have both of those at once, because usually it's so extreme, like it's like obviously crazy toxic. Like you usually don't have both of those, but usually like often you have one or the other. Like in the cult I grew up in, they didn't really care who knew what was going on inside because they couldn't control that. So instead, they worked really hard to make sure that everyone was indoctrinated. They had like a story to counteract all of the stories, like all of the things that other people would bring up, right? Like, you're anti-science. And then like, so they had like narratives to head off all of the most common objections. And they would drill them into us. And and just like also just like very anti-science, anti-education. You know, like don't learn things because it might like take you away from God. You might go to hell, and like stuff like that. And like I guess like that's why cults are cults, is because they build up like these like layers like an onion. Like there's like usually like a bunch of things that are all like stop, you're heading towards a cliff, you're gonna die, turn back, you know, like there's like tons of layers of things that will prevent you from being able to leave, from wanting to leave, right? And yeah, it's just like and the thing is that like I can think of legitimate reasons for both of those things, like reduced visibility in or out, or even both at the same time. I can think of legitimate reasons. It's just like if it's happening though, it's just like 80-90% of chance it's not happening for legitimate reasons. It's just like if it's happening, you should take pause, you should take note, you should be like, is this actually like it's just like it's like the overlap between like reduced visibility in or out is so high with like manipulative shitty behavior that even if there is a legitimate reason for it, you should try and make sure it doesn't happen for very long. You should like, because it's just like it produces weird circumstances where stuff that shouldn't be able to happen can happen. And so it's like it's not an absolute rule. It's just like relatively speaking,
it's a good heuristic.
Yeah.
If there's secrets being kept.
Yeah. Oh, that also reminds me. Okay, I've been talking about this kind of a lot recently. That I think that accurate communication is a triangulation problem. That like this has happened to me multiple times in relationships I've had where I'll be like, me and my girlfriend will be talking and we think we talked about something, and then it turns out later that we were just talking past each other. We didn't know. And then over time, this happens a lot. And in retrospect, I think the reason that it was happening so much is that like our relationship was very private. Like we mostly only hung out with each other. And the problem with that is that like what makes your relationship special often is the privacy. But privacy undermines your communication. Communication is helped by perspective. The more perspectives you have on your perspective helps your perspective, right? It reinforces and also like it validates. If you're perceiving anything correctly and other people perceive it, you see them perceiving what you're perceiving, it validates your perspective. And the same thing with communication. Like if we're talking and other people see us talking and nobody like freaks out when we talk, but that's like a pretty strong indicator that we're like having decent communication, you know? And like, and it's just like, so there's a balance there, like where you don't want to be too public because it will undermine your relationship in the opposite way. Like it'll be less special if everything's public, but also if it's too private, it undermines your communication. You want to have some balance where you not too private, not too public. And
you think should get very distorted if it's too private.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoyed about being a couples therapist. It's just
You were a couples therapist?
in my practicum, I had a few couples, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
Because you did feel, I did feel like I was seeing a side of them. And like they're smart people. They're showing me sides that their friends and family don't necessarily get to see.
Yeah.
And just being able to slow it down and like, so can you say more about here? Can you repeat what they said, or how would you understand that?
Yeah.
Just being, especially in that triangle,
Yeah.
of like trying to really hold both sides and like get into a new language about what's happening, or go deeper beneath the words that are being used. And even just like friends and relationships, or being in a relationship, always want more perspectives. And honestly, I feel like my mind is a little getting soft.
Oh yeah. Okay. We can stop.
I think it's also because I had like no food today.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. That's important. Let's pause this. All good.
That was fun.
Yeah. I I've been doing this with a couple people. I want to do this also. I'm going to do a call